this computer. Okay. All right, so let's get started. Let me share my screen. Okay, virtualization. We're going to talk about large enterprise deployments and how you can maximize your hardware with some software technologies. Okay, so as most of you guys probably already know, 5.3.8 is up. I'm going to provide a little webinar and put it on the YouTube channel describing the features and functionality, so you have a better understanding of the new stuff that just came out recently. We're going to talk about virtualization today, and then as usual, Q&A follows. Although this might be more interactive because you might have questions during the presentation, so we'll see how that goes. Normal housekeeping, participants will be muted. Well, this might change today. Don't forget about the support channel. I know last Friday's hasn't been uploaded yet, but it will be soon. So don't worry, we have it recorded and it's going to be up in a very short time. And the presentation as well will be shared on YouTube, so you don't have to take notes or anything. As a reminder, the YouTube channel is coming along nicely. Where is it? There we go. Blue Wire, just go to YouTube, Blue Wire support. It should be the first result from the search. And so 5.3.8 will be coming out. Last week's webinar will be coming out, and then today's virtualization webinar should be coming out all in fairly quick time. Okay. And as always, if you're new and you're just learning about Blue Iris, just download the software and just test it out yourselves. We lead with the product, and it's the best way to know whether our software can work with your cameras. Okay, so virtualization. So let's do introductions first. So we have Michael Lam on the call. He's out in LA with TL Technologies. He's been in enterprise IT for a very long time, and he knows a lot about security as well as managed IT services. So he does a whole bunch of things in addition to just cameras. And the reason for all that experience is he's been with Symantec for 20 years before he started his own business. And so if you have any questions afterwards, here's Michael's email as well. Or if you're in the LA area and just want to collaborate, that's the way to get hold of Michael. And Michael, you want to say hello, say some hellos to the crowd?
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Okay. So yeah, so Michael's he's very technical, so he's got a lot of details regards to the deployment that he did with enterprises. Michael, would you say that most of your business is with enterprises, or is there a mixed bag with homes and enterprises?
I have a lot of mixed bags, home and enterprise, but most of my clients do carry a lot of camera. So uh, between, yes, it's a mixed match.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's talk about the problem first. So this is enterprise customer that Michael has. And the requirements are as follows. So 24/7 by 90 days continuous recording. So they always want to know if anything happens that they can go back to it and look at the live views. I mean the recorded views. 64 plus cameras on this campus. The make and model is a mixed bag. They also have PTZ and fixed cameras. And all the cameras had 4 megapixel, 30 frames per second performance capabilities. So it's a lot of data coming into Blue Iris. They use motion triggers. They don't do alerts because they have security on prem, and so they turn on the alerts, or they may start turning on alerts in the evenings now when the security staff is gone. But during the day, they just look at the monitors because they have a security station, and they have a couple of camera groups. It's so in the station itself, they have 2 monitors, 2 groups, and so on each of the screens, they'll have each of the groups showing. And for all of this, they leverage the web interface, and that's been fine. and then Michael will talk about the optimizations and make sure to get that to work correctly. And then finally, remote access via mobile for owners occasionally. So they have some mobile usage, but it's really just the owner randomly checking in on the campus off hours. So it's not a heavy load or heavy usage from the security staff or anything. Okay, so the hardware deployment, make and model. So they use. He's got a Michael. You want to talk? You can talk about this as well. You can chime in whenever you want. He's got a pretty heavy duty blade from HP, and I also provided the URL to it. So let me go to that. So it's HPE ProLiant DL360, and Michael, do you want to share your thought process behind like why you picked this over other hardware, as well as what are the things based off what you know now? What are the things that you consider when choosing hardware for your deployments?
Sure. Well, when I using Blue Iris 4.0 is pretty different than a 5. And when I upgrade to 5, it's running really smooth on any hardware that you slap it on. The reason why I'm choosing this HP is just a few reasons. First of all, it was on sale on the time that I purchased. And then the second thing is I could get it right in the next few days rather than waiting for weeks. But it's come down to I did talk to Ken and ask him what kind of hardware is requirement. He said he didn't know that I was running a VM. So, but I choose this is, like I said, just only a few reasons. But the hardware spec, I really try to push it as much as I can with do with either CPU and memory, nothing to do with storage. My storage is totally different subject that we're talking about. But this server here is now that I realize is overkill for what I do. um, I actually run 3 Hyper-V VM in there right now. Uh, One is just for the database SQL, and one is for the web server, and one is for the BI. That's a Blue Iris. And because it's a virtual, did play a little. I believe I give it almost uh, 32 gig of memory, and it's only used 50%. But sometimes I set a auto restart just to clear out the memory once, maybe a week, just to clear it out. But I say it's running around 50 to 70% max of the memory.
Wow, that's fantastic. And so you have how many cameras? You have one BI VM or two BI VMs?
I actually take that back. Two BI, one BI is 64, and the second BI I run is 10 plus more coming, but the time that was on live is 10 more. And that one
Okay,
only give like 16 gig of memory. Um, and yeah, it's only 10 cameras, not a big deal.
and with all those cameras, all four meg, right?
Yes, that is correct.
That's fantastic. And 30 frames per second, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And then in addition to that, you put on a web server, and in addition to that, you put another VM for doing what?
One is the web server, and one is, I think the client wants the SQL server running on the back end, but it's not heavy use right now. Those two are not really heavy use at all. It just the BI is the one that use the most.
That's great. So and then the RAM was 64 gigs, right?
The physical machine is 96.
Okay. I think I have all that listed out as well, so we'll confirm that. Oh yeah, 96 gigs, 18 core CPU, and then there's two 500 gig SSD drives, but you didn't even bother with that, right? Because you have we'll talk about it as well, but like you have all your storage going to SCSI, right? Your NAS device.
That is correct.
Okay. The network is running at 1 gig all throughout, right? Like all the switches and connections to the network card of the box.
Yeah, the network switch is all gigabit. I don't have anything with 10 gig yet, and I could share that more in later regarding about how I set up the network to get it more running optimized. The server have 4 gig port, two going to the network and two going across over to the NAS.
Okay. Yeah, definitely talk about those details because I'm sure the audience will want to know. Two to the network and two to the NAS device. Okay. And one thing I just pointing this out, but I was surprised that there's no hardware acceleration in this deployment. It's just the CPU cores. There's enough of them to handle the load, which I thought was surprising, but that's great. Why isn't my mouse moving? There we go. Okay, so that's the hardware. Now let's talk about all the other stuff that needed to work as well around it to get this thing up and running. So cameras we talked about. In terms of configurations, Blue Iris is everything is dual streamed. So that was like a big value add in terms of usability. The encoding was all H.265, and the hypervisors, he's got two VMs for the Blue Irises, and it's using Microsoft. Since Blue Iris is on Microsoft, it all kind of worked out because Hyper-V is Microsoft based. The network equipment, the switch is 48 ports. So he's got, I guess you got two switches, and each one's 1 gigabit. He's got, backup power, UPS. Um, some other optimizations that he did was, since the cameras had the overlays for timestamp and stuff, he turned Blue Iris overlays off. And there were some value and performance gains associated with that, especially when you don't see so much with small deployments, but once you get into like 60 plus cameras, it can have an effect on the CPU usage. And then, all right, let's talk about storage now, Michael. So iSCSI. So yeah, you just want to drive through these requirements and how you, in particular, how you connected it to the servers to like you have a NAS, you have all your new and we always recommend putting the database and the new folder in your local SSD, but you didn't do that, and it works fine. And so just talk about all those details.
Yeah. I put my VM before I was dump all my VM into the NAS. Now you're talking about the VM had to run through the network, and I'm kind of concerned that if something happened or it's low latency, my VM gonna have an issue. So I decided to move my VM into the physical, not yeah, physical drive, C drive, not NAS. And then I think Ken told me, I think I did this too complicated. I could make it better, and it is. I think the next time I make sure I do it more easier. Just because my system admin turned on, and I thought that, oh, let's do iSCSI. It's more stable than just map a network drive, but it's still the same. You map the network drive and do it. It's almost the same, but I guess it's iSCSI is just keep it more reliable. So I put my VM on the C drive, turn it on, boot it up, and go into the OS and run the iSCSI initiator and then map the NAS drive. And then from there, I connect to my NAS and total, um, it was 12 drive, 16 terabyte, RAID 6, not 5. I got almost 148 terabyte, and then I split it out to 3 stores like you see there, new stores and aux1. The reason why I'm doing that is actually I go by months, like, new is first the latest, and then after it's done, it's too full, it move it to store and then move it out. After the last one, they delete it. Uh, and much discussing, like I said, this is my first time building this big, but later on talking to Ken and stuff like that, the next one we're gonna much easier to do it. Um, but we talk about this is I separate out, and each folder is 48 terabyte. Um, and then it just write directly to this. And I'm so concerned that it's going to use so much bandwidth that you have to understand the camera 64 camera dumping all this data through the network, and then it go into your VM, and then from your VM send the data, like the BI, send it the data into the NAS. So that's a lot of traveling. So I decided to go from, because my server have 4 NIC, two of them are low balance going to the network, and the other two low balance go straight into crossover. Like, you connect from the cable, from the NIC on the back of the server, and then plugs directly to the NAS. And then both software, you could use software to do low balance, and then that's how you write it. So how it goes that the camera travel to the switch go to the server send the data straight into the NAS, rather go back to the switch and then go back to the NAS. That's how I set up.
That's great. I hope everyone digested that. So the NAS is directly connected to the box, the server, versus connecting through the switch or the network. And that provided additional level of optimization. This is definitely a very, sophisticated power user type of configuration, but it's something to consider when you have these large deployments. I'm just looking at the questions. Some of these are okay. Maybe we'll just go through. Hey, Michael, do you have access to the questions as well? Because some of these are
Yeah, yeah. I
hardware
saw
based. So
a lot of question, and I will try to answer as much as I can. The one I popped up here is: it possible to run 64 Cam Plus on a single instance of BI? Yes, I did that already. 64 max. I tried to put in one more, it won't work, but it does. It's just most of the twisting and do a little configure. I promise you that it could run 64 camera in one VM. I did that already. And plus, because I ran out, um, I need 10 more, or later on, I think I need at least another 30 more total. So I just pop up another VM, turn it on, and then start adding into that one. Uh, I'm sorry that I can't share the screen because of the security and confidential of the client that don't want to show this. I wish I could show it to you, but if you guys have issue, I'm happy to remote in and assist you guys, and to show you that it can run 64, no problem.
okay, thanks, Michael. This is a very specific hardware question. Oh wait, I think Ken answered it. Oh, this is to you, Michael. Let me how would it compare to an 18 core i9, lower power cost, using a non-Xeon processor? Do you have any thoughts on CPUs and stuff, or we may have to table that question?
Well, I'm not really getting to more detail like what kind of CPU. The one that we have on this one was Intel. I don't recall, is it i9 or i7 Gen 10? But most of the CPU, like for example, right now I'm actually running a test machine, a laptop that's very old. What is it? i7, 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm dumping 15 camera. Again, it's always right directly to this and all little tweaks. My memory is around 20. I'm sorry, the CPU around 30%. So it's not about, I know a long time ago, BI take a lot of resource of the CPU. I realized that. That's why I'm kind of nervous to put it on a 64 camera. So I overkilled the CPU. I mean the server when the version 5 come out. Man, that thing, it just saved me. It's not a lot of tweaks nowadays that I need because I've been blowing away, redo, reconfigure. Just only a couple important that I know that it helped me. I keep those settings, but it's not a lot of tweaks nowadays when you move it to 5.0.
And of the tweaks, are you talking about like the biggest one? Would you say is dual streams? Like that saved the CPU load quite a bit. Like, is there anything in particular that you're referring to when you say these tweaks? And
Well, I have a couple lists. Like dual screen is the most important because you can have to understand all my setup here. I don't log into the console at all. because it's a VM. I'm using most of 99.9% is a web browser. So the only one time that I'm actually remote in to the server is to either add, remove, or modify something that the web browser cannot do. But I hardly do that. Most of the time, I just go in there, and once you set it up already, it's done, right? The only thing I go in there is just remove the camera, rename the camera, add more camera, stuff like that. But all my time is just outside the browser. And the browser, you could do a lot of stuff with setting up to low down your bandwidth. And I do all this remotely because of the security that I'm a little concerned. I don't open up any port. I just VPN in. That's another encryption and decryption. But man, it running smooth. To me, all web browser, I only use maximum is 1080p. That's enough for me to see everything. And especially a do view, it just not, it's awesome. That's all I could say. It's 2 megapixel because I check my bandwidth. Only take 2 megapixel for me to live view 64 camera. Um, Again, this is a website, not the console side.
Right, right. Okay, so like I think a lot of users here is really concerned about when you got like a common complaint that I see from the tickets, not complaint, but like an issue is the CPU blows up with like they'll have like 20 cameras, like nothing close to like what you have. So what would be the big takeaway, like in terms of your server, like the dual streams, um, and then H26 is H265 versus H264 a big deal in terms of getting 64 cameras to work well?
I think the two, the 4 and the five is much more compression. So you save more space when it's recording. When you're viewing, most of the viewing, the BI has already been handled it for me. When you go underneath and you just change the view type of what resolution you want to view at, right in the bottom right, the
Right,
quality.
right.
Those that's the one that is saving me. 1080, 720 is still good. 1080 is perfect right there, and I can see everything. Um, but regarding about the compression, it's just 264 and 65 is more compressed, and then when you record it into your NAS, it just save more space.
Yeah, let me bring up the web interface so that what Michael's referring to is this is the Blue Iris. Let me go back. What do you have this set to, when you do viewing? Do you have it set to 480?
Well, right now because
Oh, you have 1080, right?
yeah, I'm at the 1080. No, not that 1080. I use the other 1080. But 10 say, well, Ken say using the VBR is better. So
Yeah,
1080
yeah.
is there.
Oops. All right, so this is what for the audience, this is what Michael's referring to. Like lowered the stream to 1080 VBR, and he's able to see all 64 of his cameras. But I mean, it's always going to be dependent on your network. So, it's not hard and fast rules. But if it's causing problems, all Michael does is just keeps lowering the resolution, and this reduces the bandwidth, and then eventually will lead to a stream that's smooth, and you can see the cars driving or whatever's in your view. Um,
Yeah, because most of the client is a business side. They have Spectrum, and Spectrum all way upload is maximum is 30 or 35 megabit. And if you use it here, it's only 2-3 megabit. It's not an issue at all. And even at home, anybody using this at home, I don't know other state or not, but in LA, I think it's home is 10 megabit upload is the max. And if you set it for 1080p, you usually only take 2 meg just to view all your entire camera.
right, right. Okay, so that's good. Here's a good question. What is the network utilization? So for your 1 gig network on the campus, what is the network utilization for all these 64 cameras?
Uh, At the site local network, I last time I look at it, 64 camera going across. I think it suck up around if I remember correctly, it was 96 megabit around there, almost 100. But I don't recall because again, my the server is down right now for maintenance. I mean, for the clients to remodel, so I did not lock in right now. But I think I recall it was around 96.
Okay, okay. 96 what? Megs, right? 96.
Yes.
So very small. Okay. Okay. Let's see. We also have raised hands. So let's just finish through all these there's only like two more slides in terms of like the deployment, and then we can like get into the Q&A, which is probably the richest part of this discussion. So we talked about the SCSIs directly connected 1 gig to the server, and then basic settings. He's got 3 tiers: new, stored, and aux, and basically he divided it up only because it makes it easier to look at the you can just by doing that he was able to put the files in different buckets: 30 days, the next 30 days, and the final 30 days. And recordings was 1 hour or 2 gigs for each camera. And pre-trigger was 5 seconds, continuous recording, and then direct to disk. Okay, great. Support and maintenance, we just talked about that. Michael references quite a bit. So most of it's not through the web UI. Like it's kind of nice with Blue Wire. It's set it, and like it's kind of like that those informationals, like set it and forget it or something. So that's kind of good. Like Blue Wire is very stable with these large deployments, and then sometimes they'll use VPN if he needs to like get access to the virtual machines. And then the campus, um, oh, then he'll go in. Like if you got to install cameras, and he's got to go in anyway, so he'll do that. And then just talked about like why you chose Blue Iris. I kind of highlighted it here, but you can just expand on this: user interface, flexibility. What makes it easy? Like from like talk about, you just reiterate like just things that you thought was really good, like the fact that it can support the number of cameras, obvious, and then the main over time you realize the maintenance of Blue Wires became much easier, right?
Yes, I think the most important about the BI that I really like, I do try other NVR and other software, but the thing that's captured me is web viewing remotely. I try a company on the NVR and they have their own software that you could install into the Windows system. And I try to view only 42 camera and it suck up almost 30 megabit. And that's almost out of my bandwidth already. That's only one person. And they don't have dual screen. They do, but it's not working pretty well. And I cannot adjust the bandwidth from that site. And BI is just killed that on that portion because most of my client and I do and expanding and do maintenance and stuff like that. Everything is through VPN, and man, the BI just never give me any issue with the bandwidth. Period.
That's really good. That's a really good takeaway because uh, we had a web interface uh, webinar last week, and I started discovering the power of it as well. And it seems like this is becoming a real good value add in terms of once you deploy a system, maintaining it. And this, so like, how often do you have to drive to the campus, if ever?
No, I don't. The only time I'm going there is I'm actually either physical removing hard drive or add some physical hardware, but I don't go to the campus because everything I do remotely. I even have assigned, like, let's say if they want to add technically everything remotely. For example, the customer say they want to add a camera, and all they do is just point to a cable guy come in and run it. Plus, they mount the camera. Once they mount the camera, they just call me, and I add it into the BI and tell them to adjust the camera, and boom, I'm done. So I do mostly a lot is remote.
That's great because that saves you time. It saves truck, like gas, all that stuff, and you get huge margins on your support and maintenance contracts. So for all you resellers out there, this is a great way to um, deploy efficient large enterprise systems and do maintenance very easily. Thanks, Michael. All right, let's open it up to the questions. That's all I had, guys. So we have a lot of questions. So like usually we just open up for any questions, but today because we have Michael on the call, let's focus on the virtualization and enterprise deployments first, and then once those tapers off and there's still time, we'll go into the like whatever troubleshooting issues you guys are facing this week. Okay, raise hands. Let's go. Attendees. John, allowed to talk. Okay, John, you're muted right now, so unmute yourself. And then I'm going to open up Joey Bryant as well. Whoever talks first gets to ask a
Okay,
question.
this is John. I apologize because the phone doesn't show the mute, just the screen. Thank you, Michael, for joining us today. It's a fascinating case study. Two quick questions. One, you showed Sam showed on the slide that you use a 5-second pre-trigger with continuous recording. I thought I had read that pre-trigger is not necessary with continuous recording.
That is correct. The reason why I'm using the pre-recording is when you try to get back in, let's say the client calls, say, hey, Mike, yesterday at 3 p.m., we have an incident at this camera. All I do is just go in and look at those because if you have a trigger, it actually snapshot a little picture on the left, right?
Right.
And then how many seconds. The reason why I do that is just for me, it's easy to track down. He said at 3 o'clock, of course, they're going to have a motion sensor trigger at 3. And if you go right at that day and then you see at 3 o'clock, you click on it and boom, there you go. The requirement of the customer is just continue recording.
Okay.
For example, if you change that back to, how you view it, if you not select alert and you select all clip, you're going to see each clip will be 1 hour that I set. So imagine 12, it's always set from 11 to 12, let's say 3 o'clock. If you say 3:30, then you have to go in there and then, scroll all the way down to 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
It's more work. So I enable it just for that.
Okay, so it makes it faster for you.
Yeah, but you don't need to because it's
Okay.
already on the back running 24/7.
Yes, sir. Thank you very kindly. And my second question is, what two brands of cameras do you use exclusively?
Well, the brand camera, like I say, I have a store in LA. To me, what we discuss here and BI, they are support so much camera out there. Even myself, still testing all the camera out there, which one is good for the client. It's really depends. Some client really like high quality. Some people like wide angle. Some people like have sound, stuff like that. But regarding about the BI, it doesn't matter what kind of camera, as long as you have OnVic, you're good. You're good to go. It's all with detect. If not, just put standard OnVic and it will work.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll yield to the next question.
All right, thanks, John. Joey, if you want to, I think you can unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hey guys, really enjoyed the webinar. I guess what brought me to this was the max number of cameras on a single BI instance. Let's run the same setup on a Dell 80. Usually what I run into is when I have multiple instances of BI, the client has to remember, oh, this camera is on web server A and this camera is on web server B. I was curious, what is the max number of cameras you have had on a single instance of BI?
Michael, you there?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Are you asking is that how many camera that I put on one?
Yeah, you maxed out, right? 64 cameras?
Yeah, I maxed out to 64.
Okay, but 65 is not an option.
Yeah, it won't let you. The software will stop you.
Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't know. I was when I saw the the alert for this webinar. I thought, oh, awesome. They finally came up with a way to get over the 64 limit.
Well, two things you could do. It is 64 limit, but like I say, I mostly do is a web browser. So I have one server running at 64 and the other running at 10 for now. And there are two different IP number, right? So you have no choice to open up two web portal, like a website. So one you can see 64, the other one is you can see 10. Or another way that you could use the console is I think you could purchase one license alone and then you could just connect them together, but you still every single time you're viewing it's just one at a time.
Yeah. Oh no, that's awesome. That's typically what I do. I have the issue with clients, that they can't remember what camera's on which server. I usually try to separate it, interior, exterior cameras for separate servers, but in some larger environments, it's not easily doable. But no, thanks. Really enjoyed the webinar. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Joey. Richard Lane, allowed to talk.
Hey there. I was curious if you have any experience you can relate using other platforms like VMware, Proxmox, and just your thoughts on those virtualization environments, because not everybody's using the same stuff. So, just curious what your thoughts on that was.
Yeah, I choose Hyper-V because Hyper-V is actually free. You could run that any Windows operating system from Windows 10 to server level. To my experience, I never had tried any other VM out there, but it's not the VM that is, well, I'll take that back. It's really depend on how you could customize your VM, like I'm a CPU, memory. I used VMware before. It costs too much, but they do have the free version. To me, as long as you could control the CPU and the memory, I believe it could run any VM out there. VMware, Hyper-V, or the new ones, VM Box from Oracle or something. As long, like I say, anything that you could turn on Windows 10, controlling the CPU and the memory, you could play around with that. I think BI will work just fine.
Okay, thank you, Richard. That was Richard, I think. Thomas Curtis, allowed to talk.
Hey, so we've been running Blue Iris since like, oh boy, for I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years now. And we originally started out with a bunch of like 0.3 megapixel kind of crappy cameras. And we've started getting kind of bringing our cameras up to decent cameras now with 264, 265 encoding. And the one thing that I'm noticing, and I just built a new camera server because the old one is old. And the thing that I've been noticing is that my spindle speed is what kills me. What you had said that you're running RAID 6, and I missed how many disks you said you had on your new storage. But did you run into any kind of throughput, spindle speed issues when you were dealing with your deployment, or did you just simply have enough spindles that the data wasn't an issue?
I don't have running into any issue with my NAS because I'm running Synology. And it's really depend on your NAS configuration, RAID 5 and 6. Just one more for me to have spare, just in case if one dies, still another one is still standby. But my throughput running this writing, I remember I checked my NAS, man, it's take less than 30% of my network speed. So I have plenty horsepower to write on that the NAS. I think I did not use any SSD. It's way too expensive for a 16 terabyte drive. So, but I do using the I think it's called the NAS SATA for NAS. So it just lasts longer. It's the red one.
Right.
Um, but I guess I just bought this in July last year, so it's pretty all um, new. I don't know how old is your NAS is.
Oh, I mean, I use all local storage. I don't. I mean, for me, it's 27 cameras, but I'm kind of beginning to suspect that uh that what the real issue that I'm seeing again is like you're talking about how the 264 265 encoding is really where it's at, and that these older cameras are what ends up killing me. Because I
You,
mean, I've got a 4 megapixel camera that takes less bandwidth to record than my zero point 0.3 megapixel cameras. So, you
Yeah,
know,
if you could look at your network throughput in the task manager when you're
mhm,
writing it, or if you like my NAS, I could log in there and I could see the CPU, the network, and
yep,
everything live, and that could tell you a lot.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
thanks, Thomas. Tim McFadden, a lot of talk.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, question on the dual streams. You mentioned it a couple times, and I'm still not really sure what you mean by that. What does that do? Like, so I guess let me explain my setup. I have my setup set up with the it's Blue Iris. I think it's 7 cameras, and I already have dual stream set up for each of them because I have it set up like that YouTube video with the hookup where he's using the AI from I can't remember what the name
Oh,
of it
deep
is.
stack. Yeah.
Yeah, Deep Stack, and I have 2 cameras set up, and they're actually both set up with the max quality of the streams, and so I already have dual streams. So I'm curious as to what do you mean by that?
So I think when you have two connections to the camera, um, and uh, like DeepStack leverages that, but like dual streams, it could be the same, or you. I'm not sure if the two connections to the cameras is to the same stream or to the high resolution, low resolution. But that being said, the basic idea is with Blue Iris, like all my cameras, these are all 2 meg cameras, and I'm at my house right now, and these are like obviously at an office complex, and so like you see how it's like smooth, like the cars, you can see it traveling. The reason that's possible is because even though it's over the internet, this is a low resolution stream, and the reason how you set that up is like with this is it's still one camera, right? I mean, it's just one box, right? But in the settings, it'll tell you. Blue Iris will tell you as well, like the mainstream, the high res, like all cameras will have different resolutions, like that, especially the newer ones with higher resolutions. So like there's a 2 meg, so the mainstream is 2 megs, and then the substream is like a 640 by 480, I think. It's 0.3 megs, and because I'm leveraging the well, not me, but Blue Wire. Like once I set up the two streams, and the way you do that is just talk about that for a second. So you do it in the config file, and I can't go into the details right now, but we do have webinars on this topic as well. It's I think it's called Network IP Cameras webinar, like in the YouTube channel. But anyways, once you set it up correctly, Blue Iris leverages, like it's smart enough to know. So like because you don't need a high resolution and you just want a good smooth experience, Blue Iris is leveraging the lower resolution 640. And when I double click on one of them, it's going to pop right into the high resolution. Like when you want to like look in detail into a
Oh, okay,
camera,
all right, I get it now. Yeah,
boom.
because I see what you're saying. So I just use the generic one, which I don't think has the 2 streams. So I probably need to pick my camera and set it up correctly with the individual camera type with the dual streams, and then it should
100%.
know.
That's like one of the biggest, like, I mean, there's no way Michael could do 64 4 meg cameras with just one stream, just the main stream. He has everyone set up for main and sub, and Blue Wires does the magic to like leverage the right one to provide the right user experience to the user.
Yeah, guys. I mean, mainstream is broadcasted out at 3.7. If it megabit, I mean 3.7 right now, And if you're talking about running 64 with all those 3 megabit, what am I keep saying, megapixel, it's gonna kill your bandwidth 100%. So the dual stream there is really helpful. Be advised, it's recording on the mainstream. Okay, when it's recording on the high definition, but when you're viewing it, it's viewing sub. I didn't play with it. I think BI will have an option for you if you want to record main or sub. That's I have to check with Ken on that. But it's always, to me, I already set recorded high definition. I mean not high, but the mainstream. But when you're viewing across the internet, uh, especially on the website, is using the sub for what you see right now. But once you click on the camera, it will bring it up to the mainstream so you can see more better quality. And sometime I did that is, when I was somewhere that's low bandwidth and you click on one of the camera, it go way too high. Then you change your view setting on the bottom left to bring it back down to 1080p or 720, then you still could view it.
Yeah. So what Michael's talking about is like he uses the web interface all the time, and so if you open one up, this will also go into the high resolution, but it might start. You'll see it. It's going to start timing out. Because high resolution, I mean, like this is coming across the internet from like I'm in San Jose and this campus is in Oakland, across the internet, and so the high resolution is going to crap out. There you go. It's going to crap out. So what Michael does is just lowers it down to like 480 or whatever. Like, and then like once you tell Blue Iris that, it's going to pop the feed from high resolution to low resolution automatically. Like it'll do it all behind the scenes, and you can tell like right away. Like you can see like the seconds. It's very continuous. You can see the cars in the background running continuously. So that's what Michael does, like to play, like when he's remote access to like get a good user experience. He just messes with the stream quality.
Okay, cool. So I actually had a couple other comments too. Just more comments. So last week when you guys talked about this, I actually moved my Blue Iris. I was running it on a little dedicated PC, and I moved it to my VM server. I have a workstation. It's like a Dell Precision 7600 I bought off eBay for $1,000, and it has 256 gigs of RAM and 16 processors. If anybody wants, I can share the link to the guys on eBay that sell it. It's amazing and I'm running VMware. I set mine up with 6 processors. So I originally started with 2, then I went to 4, and 4 was completely saturated. So I had to go to 6 processors, 6 virtual processors. And this is on VMware with 16 gigs of RAM, and I'm running, well, 7 cameras, but 14 streams because I got the dual, because I got each of them for the deep stack, and it's
Right.
running pretty flawlessly at this point. I think it's about 76 CPU on it, which is high, but I guess on a virtual system you expect it to be high because you're only using part of the system, and then I also have 24 other VMs running in this system as well. So with the 16 processors, if people are looking to virtualize stuff, the processors and memory, you want to make sure that those are, you get tons of memory and decent amount of processors.
That's a good tip. So you have 6 or 16 processors,
16 processors, yeah.
and you have 16 gigs. Is that what you said for RAM?
So I have, so for the VM itself, it has 6 processors, 6 virtual processors. The host, the VM system itself has 16 processors. So I'm using 6 virtual processors and 16 gigs of RAM on VMware ESXi, the free version.
Oh,
and
okay.
it runs pretty flawlessly. And I have 2 4 terabyte Samsung SSDs, so I don't worry about the I/O piece of it.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, I might reach out later, Tim. Maybe we'll have on
Sure. Yeah.
For your case study details.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
That's all I got. Thank you. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. I've learned a lot. Big thing last week was just that little the camera names on the web interface was huge. It's so silly, but it was huge. So
I hear you. Like going through the
thank you.
preparing for it is helps me learn a lot too. So I hear you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for doing this.
All right, thanks, Tim. Tom, allowed to talk.
All right, I had a question about the network utilization for 64 cameras. 96 megabytes is almost the max of gigabit Ethernet, which is 125. Do you have to do VLANs or physical separate networks for the cameras, and then the corporate network side? Any comments on that piece of it?
Because of this, I built that just for the camera. I don't have a lot of guest network, so like Wi-Fi, because they're all using the same.
Mhm.
I did isolate the VLAN out just in case of security. So all the cameras stay in one VLAN, and the guests and staff have their own different VLAN. And
Okay, but they're all running across the same switch, so you
yes,
don't
that
see
is
anything.
correct. And
Okay.
I have two switch. Remember, we have two dual switch. I mean, two
Mhm.
switch, right? 48. So it come up to
Oh,
like,
okay, yeah, two. Gotcha. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Oh, what was that? Yeah, that was Tom. Let's see who's next. Michael Newman, allowed to talk.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep, there you are.
Hey, thanks for doing the webinar. Michael, I really appreciate your input. So I work at AWS, Amazon Web Services, so I'm fairly technical, and I've struggled with Blue Iris until we came up with substreams. I have a Dell Optiplex i9 9900 series processors running at 3.1 gigahertz with 32 gigabyte of RAM. And I was running 28 cameras on it. I have an SSD drive, then a 10 gig SATA drive behind it. So without running substreams, I was at 100% CPU. I went to substreams, it dropped down to 20. Now I'm wondering whether I should increase, because I have 4 megapixel and 8 megapixel cameras. I was initially, before I went to substreams, running them at 1920 by 1080 max at 15 frames per second. But in listening to you with the VM running 64 cameras and using substreams, but you're recording all the time, constantly at 30 frames per second, and you're using H.265, I'm using H.264. With substreams, I'm at 20% processor utilization, and I'm wondering whether I should increase my mainstream, which is not what's viewable right until you click on the camera, but it records the mainstream to a much higher rate to get the benefits of those 4 megapixel and 8 megapixel cameras, and how that might impact CPU. So I know I said a lot there. I want to give you the foundation of what I was using, the transitions I went to substream, and my real question is, can I increase my frames per second and my resolution without substantially impacting processor power now that I'm using substreams for viewing?
when you're increasing, is it for viewing or for recording?
For recording. So because I'm now using substreams, my substreams are at much lower resolutions, right? Like 640 by 480 or 705 by some other resolution, right? That's what my substreams are running at. But I would like to use I would like, much like you said, to get the benefit of my 4 megapixel and 8 megapixel cameras from a recording standpoint. So do you think I could easily pump those resolutions up on 28 cameras for the mainstream, for the recording, up to the higher rates of like 4K resolution at maybe 30 frames per second and record like you are?
First, before I could answer that, I just need to know. I know you said you're running AWS. Are you talking about your?
No, I work for AWS.
Oh, I see. This is all local. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me refer back that to Ken. Hey, Ken, is it BI when you record, can you have an option somewhere there to change it? Because I don't recall that. If you could say, hey, I could record 1080p or 48. I think somewhere that I could change that. Is that true first?
You can, and it's under the camera settings. This is Mike, sorry, I know you asked a question, Ken, but yes, you can. It's under the camera settings, and it's under the video quality on the previous screen, actually. It's on the video quality there, image size format and max rate, but the truth of the matter is these settings are limiters in my mind to what the camera is actually set at. So if you go to the actual camera itself and you increase the mainstream to whatever image format and frames per second, that's what the maximum is that will be provided, and then Blue Iris can use those.
Well, to
It's
answer
very
the question,
true. It's always been true. Yeah, the software will use whichever whatever resolution the camera is sending. And to your question was, can you increase that now? Yeah, that will just potentially use more bandwidth and more disk space to save, but it wouldn't increase any CPU utilization just to record that, other than whatever is incremental just to save a little more to the disk.
So that's a home run. So that's the most substantial improvement I've seen in Blue Iris, which is that substream, which allows me now. I literally was at 100% CPU utilization. I'm running somewhere between 20 to 25% on average now using those 28 cameras, which then allows me to record now continuously and do other things that I couldn't before at much higher quality. So thank you. That's awesome. And I really appreciate the inputs on this seminar. Thank you, Michael and Ken.
yeah, if you add another one in there, if you write directly to this,
I do.
Yeah,
I do without any encoding. Yes, I write. I do write directly to disk.
then yeah, I don't see you could bump it up. I don't see that gonna cause any issue because those is not hurting the CPU or anything on the physical side. So it just push everything to this. So the only thing that we do usually do write to this. Or what again, if you have local drive, then yeah, period. But if you're using NAS, it's really depend on your network.
Yeah, I have a Synology NAS with two 10 gig ports that are bound together as one, going into two 10 gig ports on a Dell switch, which are bound together. So I'm writing first to the SSD, then transferring it to the local SATA, then transferring it from the SATA to the NAS in the background.
Oh wow, there you go, Ken. Somebody more physical than me.
I wouldn't say so. I haven't gone out there to put it on a VM because everything suggested to me until I went to substreams that wouldn't be a good idea. But now maybe with substreams that's possible.
Oh, what you got there? Yeah, go for it, man. It's gonna be fun.
Cool. Thank you so much for letting me provide, ask my question and also interact. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate it too, Michael. You get some good insight, so thank you. Okay, Tel Gates, allowed to talk. Hey, Tel. You're muted right now. Still muted. That was the last. Are you there, Tel?
Hello?
Okay. Oh,
Did this work now?
Yep, you're there.
Okay, to answer the last guy's question, I have 6 4K cameras, not 4 meg, but 8 meg, and 4 5 meg cameras. And on the recording, my network utilization is 9%. So it's now I'm using cameras that I haven't gotten the substream to work because it's not one that's part of the Blue Iris, and I've got to go through and I think deal with Ken on that one. But just to let you guys let the guy with the 28 cameras know that he'd probably go up to somewhere on the order of 30% utilization for his network with a direct recording approach.
Oh, okay. And then what's your encoding? 264 or 265?
265.
Okay.
So but I do have a question for Ken specifically, and to put my camera, open up a port for Blue Iris support to come in. Do you have a fixed IP address that I can go through and allow you guys to come in, or do I have to leave it open to the internet?
Well, if I need access to the camera, yeah, it would be direct to the camera through the internet.
No. I can open up there, but I'm talking about for the WAN side. Do you have a specific IP address that you're coming in from? A fixed IP or static IP, I should say, that I can go through and assign that for that port opening.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just for your firewall. Yeah, we can just give that to you through the chat, through support when that's required.
Okay. So that's the first question. next one is, can that Blue Iris camera, or a camera that you're going through to mess with, can that be on a completely separate network? Just standalone by itself that you can log into, or does it have to be associated with the Blue Iris functionality?
No, it's directly to the camera, so it doesn't have to be at any particular location, right?
That's what I thought, but I just want to make sure that that's my questions for the day. It's nice to see that someone is really pushing this to the limit, though. With what was it, 74 cameras?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We were quite impressed too. So yeah, totally.
That's it for my questions for the day.
All right, thanks, Tal. Tyler, allowed to talk.
Hey guys, thanks very much. Quick question about power consumption on your server. I think I saw it had an 800 watt power supply. Just wondering if you know how much power it's actually drawing with that many cameras.
Are you talking about the server? Or are you talking about the whole thing?
This server is really what I'm referring to.
Ah, that's a good one, because the server is server. It's nothing to do with the camera, how many camera. 2 power supply on the back. I think that's come with standard, but I did not measure how many watts is pulling it out. But my understanding when I work with server, I don't recall it consume a lot, because again, it's always sit there. It don't write anything. It just passed through the network to the NAS. So I don't recall. I can't tell you, but I don't know how much it used.
Yeah, okay. I've got an older i7 that I was playing around with, tweaking some of the settings, and I could find a pretty big difference in like the different, some of the different settings and how it would consume power. And that's kind of what I used as my gauge for where I was running most efficiently. But I think because it's an older processor, I'm not able to take advantage of some of the newer technologies that you would probably be using in your environment. So just curious to know what kind of wattage you're pulling. But if you don't have it, that's fine. Appreciate this, guys. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Tyler. Okay, I think that's it for the virtualization questions. It's already 9 o'clock. So Michael, you can stay on. I'll reach out later as well. But that's your option. We'll open it up for maybe 10 more minutes. Ken, is that cool for other questions or problems that people are having during the week?
Yeah, sure, we'll take a couple. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, let's see, who do you got? Tal, do you have another question, or I don't think so? Okay.
I have a comment.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just went through and looked at my i7 6700K, and the power consumption in my situation for the processor alone is about 50 watts to the guy that was asking that.
Oh, okay. Good.
Hey, thanks. I don't know if you can still hear me, but appreciate that. I'm 100 watts right now on 7 cameras, I think. That's for the whole machine, though, not just the processor.
Well, no, that's the whole machine. Basically, I just went to look at the UPS, and it was bouncing between 45 and 55 watts there.
Yeah, okay. Well, one of the things I've been considering is like moving my server off-site or virtualizing and maybe putting it in the cloud even if you have a really fast upload speed. And I've been looking at the cost of the electricity that my server is drawing versus the cost of running it in a different environment. Basically, that's kind of how I got into looking at the power consumption.
You must be in California.
No, I'm not. I'm in Canada, actually.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense. From what I've concluded, it certainly does not make sense to do that.
Well, since attending the seminar last week, I switched over to using the service versus the local console, and the utilization has dropped to something like 16% just for the service.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. There's no more raised questions. Hey, Ken, did you have any questions in the Q&A pod that you wanted to share with the audience?
I've been answering the ones I can. There are still quite a few in there. They're really for Michael, but I'm not sure which of these have already been addressed. So if you want to go through that with Michael.
Okay, I'll just read off some of them, which is kind of like maybe useful for the general audience, and then either one of you guys can chime in.
Hey, Sam, this is John. I've got a quick question,
Yeah, go ahead, John.
if I may, please. So in the folder structure in Blue Iris, on the C drive under Blue Iris, we of course typically have the new and the stored, or we move stored off. There's also an alerts folder. I don't ever see any files in the alerts folder on the disk. So I have,
It's
you know,
funny that
100.
you bring this up, John, because this is something that's changed actually with version 5.3.8. Sam's going to do a little presentation on that and put that up on YouTube. But you're right. Typically, the alerts folder is empty because the alerts are just database entries by default. There is an option that you can save an actual JPEG file associated with each alert. And the new for 5.3.8 is you can actually save now an MP4 file with each alert, and those will live in the alerts folder.
Okay. So nothing's wrong. Okay, thank you.
No, yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
And then just lastly, I find that if I close the console, the CPU utilization drops dramatically. When I open the console, it jumped with only a few cameras. It goes back up to like, 15, 18%. But if you close the console and use the web interface, the CPU is down in the noise. So just running the console seems to tax the CPU, significantly more.
Well, that would be a function of it's drawing all that video to the screen, and without the console, it's not doing that.
Right.
One thing you could look at is on the settings cameras page. There is an option to control the frame rate for the console, basically. So if you are comfortable lowering that to 10 or 5, that will lower the CPU as well. It doesn't affect recording or anything. It's just for live viewing.
On the Blue Iris settings or the camera
Yeah,
settings?
Blue Iris, right.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Sam, let me answer a few questions here. I started reading it here. Somebody asked if the VM running Windows 10. Yes, I am running on Windows 10 on that. And above of that, see how many web viewer station do you run? The web viewer at the site, local site, is 1 for the security. And then I start doing something different about the web viewer. Hopefully this catch everybody interest. Are using, for example, one of the office, executive office or office, they want to know who's in front of the door. So I don't want to put a laptop because it's a browser, right? So I come up with a bunch of, what's it called here? Fire stick. So I use a Fire Stick.
What's that?
Fire Stick, those things that you're watching from Amazon, you used to watch Netflix,
Oh, yeah.
So because Fire Stick is small, simple, HDMI, plug it in, you don't have to do a lot. So I set that up, and they have some really cool tool out there that you could remote in anywhere. It's like a PC remote, like you could remote in and change anything for technical support. But I set it up, and you have to load a couple app. You could find some better app out there. Just when they start up, it could launch into a browser, and then you create an account for that. And then now you go into BI and create that account, because again, it's a security thing that they don't want everybody see everything. So I dedicate one account just to see the front door. So now you could view, and you could just take that Fire Stick and stick it anywhere on the back of a TV, a monitor, anything, connect to the Wi-Fi, and boom, you could see that any camera that you choose to with that account. So to answer that question, I have 2, and then 2 more remotely to answer how many VIs to run to view the station. And then the second one, on top of that, say if you're not running 64 camera, is it worth to run Hyper-V? The reason why why I'm running a Hyper-V is I hit the roadblock of 64, right? If you could run physical without VM, why do you don't need to run Hyper-V? The reason is that I beef up the server so much and I'm running 64, and then I could run more. I had to bring in another physical machine, right? So that's why I come up with a solution, say, hey, let's dump this into VM. Let's see if it can handle it. And then it does. So now I could add more camera. So technically the machine that I purchased just for 64 camera, right? But I thought that it will max out. It could hit the CPU and call it a day, 64 camera. But since I over beef and the tweaking and all those things working great, how am I going to add another 10 more or 30 more camera? So that's why I turn into Hyper-V. But if you don't need Hyper-V to run, if you're under 64, yeah, just run native.
Good stuff, Michael. Do you have any more questions that you see that would be useful for the general public?
I guess somebody asking about addressing the NAS hardware use recommend.
Oh, we got more questions. Oh crap. Okay, a lot of talk. David Welsh. David, you're muted. Allowed to talk. Daniel Stieg. Whoever chimes in first can go ahead. And then
okay, this is David Welsh. I'm sorry. Michael, I really like your Fire Stick. I'm running a similar situation with view stations. I run Raspberry Pis. They have a physical Ethernet port, and I can power those PoE auto launch to a web viewer to web stream. And with our deployment, I had some executive monitors, and then it turned into monitors here and there and everywhere. We've got about 15 view station monitors. And I'm starting to see some CPU issues and some lag by adding too many web viewer stations to my setup. I didn't know if anyone had any suggestions there.
How do you view it? Do you view it like a single camera?
I'm doing group viewing. We've only got 12 cameras, and I've only got one group.
And if you're running, if you're running multiple viewing and a group viewing like that, I recommend if it start killing it, I recommend you to drop down your viewing quality. Or another way of controlling that from the BI is go into the setting and change, drop it down the frame per second. That could help a lot.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're talking about here, like in the
Yes,
yeah,
that's the one.
This is how you control how much frames go from Blue Iris to the browser. So this is a good tweak. I forgot to mention this last week, but it's a good little thing to keep in mind. Control to like number of frames going out to your browsers. Yeah, good catch, Michael. I forgot about that one. Okay, was that Daniel?
Yeah.
Somebody. Okay,
Yep.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, from Michael. Earlier you were talking about your virtual machines, and I think you said you had 3, and one was for the Blue Iris, and one was for the database, and I can't remember what the third one might have been. But my question is, how did you configure the database in your virtual environment as far as isolating it to a dedicated VM?
Well, the database is, I'm not managing the database. One of the guys that won a SQL server, all I do is just pop up another 2019 server on it. He says it's very light because we're trying to test out something for the client that they want to use the database to keep track. And he said, yeah, can I have a server or something so I could write my, database? So all I do is just spin up another VM and then hand it over to him for him to remote desktop in, and he take it over from there. How much he used, I'm looking at it. It didn't use that much. We didn't go far enough for the database, get the requirement, what kind of spec they need. We didn't. He didn't go far enough.
Okay, so then that instance of the database is completely isolated from the rest of the Blue Iris software.
Yeah,
is what you're
Daniel.
saying.
I think there's a misunderstanding. Like Daniel, like that database that Michael's referring to is that's just a completely separate enterprise requirement. It has nothing to do with the Blue Iris database.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Del Fisher, allowed to talk. I see other raised hands, Tel and John. Like, you're not unmuted, so like, if you want to chime in or something, please do so. Del, you have access. If you're muted right now, but you can
About
go
now.
ahead. Yep, there you are.
Okay. I held off because my setup is quite a bit different than the continuous recording. So I have 12 cameras. I'm a home user. My cameras are generally 2 megapixel. I have a couple exceptions to that. I have cameras out on the street underneath my mailbox. I live on a suburban street. I have a big rural mailbox, and that enables me to kind of hide some cameras. I got out my Rust-Oleum, and they're colored brown with khaki that I applied with a sponge, so they're kind of camouflaged. I pick up pretty well license plates. I get almost 100% day and night, and one camera points east, one camera points west, and I'm troubled by the people who don't use or don't have front license plates on their car. That bothers me. That's why I need 2 cameras for license plates. So I've done quite a bit of tuning, and so even though I'm a home user and all that, I'm pretty technical. I'm about ready to dive into the dual stream features that have been in the recent releases of Blue Iris. And I'm looking out on the Blue Iris support in the YouTube channel, and I don't really see a dedicated video to how to configure the dual channels and how to reduce CPU and all that. And I was just wondering, is there going to be a session where you go into the dual channels, the CPU savings, so the dual streaming, I mean, the CPU savings associated with that, and the configuration nuances? Is that going to happen or not? Is that not a big deal? Is that so rare that it's way off the beaten path? What's your feeling about that?
Well, now that you mentioned it, we're totally going to do it because this is the type of feedback we like to know, like what the audience wants to know about. So you're right. It's like the dual streaming is talked about in different parts, like a little bit here and there, but it's good feedback. So I'll definitely put this on the list of topics to talk about.
I think that it's new as of 5.37, isn't it right? That it really didn't work until 5.37. Is that true?
Well, the ability to do substreams has been around for quite a while, for yeah, at least the year. So it's more getting people on board with using it, because it's not on by default. But as people are using higher megapixel cameras, yeah, it does become a necessity, really.
I've had trouble using H.265 within the last year. So I pretty much had given up on H.265, but it seems like the kinks have been worked out of H.265. Is that a fair statement?
I wouldn't say that. Like oftentimes when we have issues coming in from like artifacts associated with the streams, oftentimes it's because H.265 doesn't work well with the hardware decoding that's on your box. So
I don't use hardware decoding. I only use the the Intel processor for that.
I know, but the Intel QSync as well. Like there might be conflicts with that. With the cameras, H.265. All I'm saying is like, I've had a user that, I don't want to say the vendor, but like they bought the newer version of the same vendor's camera, and it was working fine with H.264, but H.265 wasn't working, and he couldn't figure it out. And then he finally realized, after going through like a whole bunch of internet searches, that that camera's H.265 isn't you know is having problems with other decoders.
Okay.
So
All right.
if you are having problems, I would flip from 265 to 264 first as an easy
Yeah,
check.
I'm running 264. And then I'll just add one final comment, and that is that I'm using HP's little computers that are like 7 inches square and 1.5 inches high. There's several models of it. I happen to use the 800s mini, and they don't take very much CPU. I mean, very much power. I'm running a 6-core i7, and I'm running with my 12 cameras at full resolution right now at the 2 megapixel with fairly complex triggers, and I'm running at about 30% CPU. People might want to try these 6-core i7s, and they don't have to come from HP. There's several companies that sell these small computers, and HP markets them as a 35-watt TDP, but I think it's a little more than that. But it's certainly in the 40, 50-ish watt range when I hook up my kilowatt to it. And it works pretty well. It's surprisingly well. And I use SSDs. And I thought that my SSDs might fill up, get overwritten too many times and die. But I'm surprised that I'm able to run these SSDs, and I'm running a consumer Samsung right now. And those seem to run quite well. And I'm very happy. And I back up immediately to the web. I use Google's Sync software, and so I'm backing up in real time. And I use the built-in, if you want to call it, file folder management that's in the global settings of Blue Iris. And so I'm backing up in real time. It all works well on a very small processor, which the computers I think new were in the $1,000 range, and you can buy older ones, the i7 6700T. You can get those for 300 used. So I'm doing well on my what do you want to call it, my power. And I live in California, so I should say PG&E is my power company, and my home is a 2-story home. I'm afraid to put solar on the roof because the next earthquake, all the weight on the roof, my house will fall down probably. So anyway, I feel a little stuck. But anyway, that's what's going on with me. So there you go.
That's good insight. So thanks for sharing that, Del. Okay, it's we got 5 minutes left. So Jorge, allowed to talk, and we'll see how far we get with that.
I got a question for Michael.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, how many cores do you have dedicated for your VM for the 64 cameras?
That's a good question. Let me see if I could remember. I believe either 12. I think it's 12.
12?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to
Do you know
double
how
check
much
them.
RAM?
RAM, I put it in for that guy. I put it actually. I give it to 32 gig.
Okay.
But yeah, 32.
And what's your utilization for that? How
For
many
the memory,
for the CPU usage?
CPU, I believe it hit around no more than 50, around 30 to 40 to 50. 40 is low if nobody viewing it. When somebody start hitting a lot, it hit around 50. When you do a clip view pass, it could go up to 80.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Jorge. And no more raised hands.
If you don't mind, let me answer a few more questions about the VM here. I saw somebody ask about, so window only platform can be run on the VM or Ubuntu, correct? Well, most of those VM, Hyper-V, as long as you could installing window in there, BI will run on it. I think that's what the question is.
Okay.
And then I thought I saw one more somewhere. Yeah, I think that's it. I'll try to dig out some more.
Okay. Well, if there's more questions, please ask, and we'll look through the Q&A to ask
This
as
is
well.
for Ken.
Okay.
This is Tel again. Over the last month or so, I use the OnVIF trigger because with my high resolution cameras, that was killing the the CPU usage. So, but what I've noticed is with these ongoing updates, and I try to keep with the most recent one. I noticed that the ability to see the triggers come and go. Has that been because you've been going through improving it, or is it something that I need to change on my side?
Right. Thanks for bringing that up. This is a side effect as a direct result of implementing a user feature request. And that is that for an OnVIF device that has more than one camera, it distinguishes between the cameras using something called the video source token. And I had to basically filter it by the camera in order to accommodate multiple cameras with a single OnVIF device. So apologies, you do need to go to the camera properties, camera settings, video tab and network page. And once again, use find inspect to pull that over, or see it's where it says video source token. You may see that box blank, or it may be the same as the first one, the video source, where it says video source 1, and your camera may require that to be set properly in order to distinguish which events belong to that camera.
Where is that again, Ken?
Sam has the screen up right now. Display.
Okay, so it's under the camera settings then.
Yeah.
Individual one. Okay.
In a recent version, so if you're updating from an old version to the current version, you may not encounter this issue because I have it basically defaulting. If it's blank, it defaults back to what it was doing before, which, in hindsight, that's what it should have been done. It should have been done from the beginning, but there you go. So that's how to fix it.
Okay, thanks. That's
Okay, thanks, Tel. Michael, go. I don't think there's any other questions, so go ahead, Michael. It's 9:29, so last question, Michael. Make it a good one. Oh wait, Martin wants to chime in. Nope. Go ahead. You see a good question? A last final question answer, Michael?
I'm still coming through here.
I'm at the bottom. I'm having issue with version 5 with console when running as a service. No cameras appear in console. Okay, Brian, we're gonna have to take that offline. That's like a little bit too detailed. So I see some questions with 100% CPU. So like if your CPU is maxing out, like the first thing you have to do is go to dual streams. And we referenced it. Some of the webinars that, so I think I'm pretty sure I mentioned it. So if you're trying to figure out dual streams, I think performance troubleshooting talks about it, as well as the first one, network IP cameras. And I'll just talk about it really quickly here. So like basically you have to provide the second URL. So like this is very specific to Hikvision, so don't just copy this. But the 301 and the 302, that's what tells. The 3 is the camera 3 on this NVR, and then the 1 and the 2 is the 1 is a mainstream and 2 is a substream. This is a very specific Hikvision convention. It's not going to work for all cameras, but basically you have to fill in both these fields. And those webinars will give you a start, and then you can like reach out to support if you're getting stuck on getting your dual streams up. Do you got anything, Michael? Last question.
No.
Oh, wait, last raised hand. No. Okay. Cal F, last raised hand. Okay, here we go. Go ahead, Cal. Cal's on mute.
There we
No,
go.
I
You hear me
didn't
now?
have a question. I had left it up accidentally.
This is
okay.
Cal. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, tell you there.
Yes, I am. I was just playing around with that substream on one of my cameras. And when I did that, it went out and found the substream when it was in multi-screen. When I went to main screen, it kept that same resolution. Am I doing something wrong?
You found the substream and then, okay, I mean, just hit okay instead of, I mean, basically, once you found it and put it in, hit okay instead of find inspect. Is that what you did?
Yes, yes.
And the substream did not come up? Is that what you're saying?
The substream came up on the multi-screen when you're
Right.
viewing all the cameras, but when I double clicked it to get a full screen, it kept that same resolution, the substream resolution, like a 640.
I'm sure it'll pop in. But if it doesn't, just send us a ticket. That's a little bit too specific to talk about with the general audience. Okay, all right, 9:32. I think we'll call it a day. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, Michael. Also for all that detail. Okay, bye, guys. Closing the meeting.